Hey everybody, Tony Goldmark here, aka Some Jerk with a Camera, doing commentary on the ABC Goes to Disney World retrospective. This is the longest multi-part project that I've ever forced myself to see through to completion in the time I've been doing Some Jerk with a Camera. It wound up being 8 episodes in total, so I will be releasing a commentary a day from Sunday to Sunday this week, commentating on all 8 episodes. This is one of, I believe, only 2 shots in this particular episode that were actually shot in Florida. This one, of course, in front of the ABC Sound Studio at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which I believe is now showing Path of the Jedi. And what better choice for a first reference in this magnum opus than Bill Hicks, the comedian that all Disney Park fans just revere. I'm sure the Venn diagram between Disney Park fans and Bill Hicks fans is just a circle. I mean, they're the same people, really. So the reason there's so few Florida shots in this intro episode is because originally it was much shorter. In fact, originally the entire retrospective was much shorter. When I first thought of the idea, I thought, well, that's cool. That'll be like a 2 or 3 part episode, and I'll cover each sitcom really quickly and then move on to the next one, and I'll cover multiple sitcoms per video, and it didn't work out that way. Like most of my projects, it kind of snowballed until it became the 8-part behemoth you see before you. By the way, that shot of me in the blue shirt laughing in an audience, that came from a Comedy Central show called The Benson Interruption that I was in the audience for. Doug Benson had his own stand-up show on Comedy Central for about 6 episodes, and I was in the audience for one of them. So anyway, the first drafts of these episodes were shot in Florida in September of 2012 on the same trip where I shot most of the 30 Years of Epcot retrospective. I just thought, I'll get some more bang for my buck and crank out a few first drafts of these dumb ABC sitcom reviews, and I'll shoot those there too. But after I got back from Florida and finished the Epcot retrospective, I just kept thinking of new ideas for the ABC stuff. Like this infomercial parody, for example. I came up with this long after I got back from Florida. And this VHS effect, I know nowadays that phones have apps and stuff for editing programs which can give you the VHS effect, but I didn't know any of that at the time, so I achieved this effect the old-fashioned way. I edited the scene, burned it to a DVD, and then copied it between 2 VCRs like 6 times, and then burned it back to a DVD recorder and ripped it to my computer, and it looked perfect. It looks just like an old VHS tape, because technically it kinda is. This joke where I tear the greasy VHS funk off myself never really worked as well as I would have wanted, and it took me forever just to get it to the point where it looked a tenth good, but this is the best I could do. Maybe I should have just cut the joke. I don't know. So as with pretty much all my videos, I like to get some historical context in there, and I do find it interesting that after ABC basically allowed Disneyland to happen in the mid-50s, Disney completely abandoned ABC after they moved to NBC for The Wonderful World of Color. And it took Michael Eisner, who conveniently used to work for ABC, to get Disney to make shows for ABC again. And eventually Disney bought ABC out, and I can't imagine that was a coincidence. So this intro video wasn't going to be its own video at first. It was just going to be the first part of the Full House video. And the only 2 location-based ideas I had for it by the time I got to Florida were the ABC Sound Studio shot and this shot in Fantasyland. So if you're familiar enough with the iconography of these parks to be able to identify which coast I'm on in each shot, the shots where I'm on the West Coast were almost all bits I didn't think of until after I got back from Florida. So coming up is the montage of people saying Disney World, and in that bit I really wanted to include the clip of Patton Oswalt saying Disney World from his album Feelin' Kinda Patton, but I scoured YouTube and I watched all his DVDs in that era, and I don't think he ever did that bit on camera, or if he did, I couldn't find it. So instead, right here, I included the video clip from his No Reason to Complain DVD of him saying Gravy Pipe! And because his mic is mostly covering his mouth, I was able to dub in Disney World without it being recognizable as not matching, and no one ever called me out on it, so I guess it worked. So this opening credits bit took a really long time to pull together because of the various locations, some in the park obviously, and some at my dad's house in San Francisco, and some at Morgan's house in Riverside. And I'm really glad that Too Many Cooks didn't come out until long after this episode was finished, because if it had come out while I was still working on it, I probably would have just given up on this whole sequence and said, nope, Adult Swim did it far better than I ever could. That bit with the various me's at the table took a really long time to pull together in editing, but worth it, I think, because I'm really, really proud of how it finally looks. And speaking of a lot of work but worth it, the Golden Gate Bridge shot right here is possibly my favorite thing I've ever done for Some Jerk with a Camera. I just love that we actually went for it. We actually went to the trouble of getting this elaborate shot, and it's really stupid, and I love it. Now, when it faded to black there, when this was on Blip, that had an actual commercial break in it, which I always thought was crucial for the joke. But it took a bit of finagling to actually achieve that, because on Blip at the time, you couldn't put a commercial break less than 5 minutes into the video, and there had to be at least 5 minutes of video after the commercial break, so it took a little stretching and pulling to make the intro video longer than 10 minutes, and to make sure that commercial break was at the exact right point where it could be. And here's a little riff on Escape from Tomorrow, back when we all thought Escape from Tomorrow might be good, when we just heard news stories of it premiering at Sundance, and the only clip we got was this little bit of the pool scene on YouTube, and it looked artsy, certainly, so, lordy, I had no idea the torture I was in for. And I just spoke over clips from the Blossom Disneyland episode, which is actually pretty good. It's one of the better let's go to a Disney park sitcoms of the 90s, but of course for this retrospective I wanted to focus on the ABC stuff, and Blossom was on NBC, even though it was a Disney-owned show. I'll probably do a full review of it someday, but I want to put a little more distance between me and this ABC retrospective before I launch into another one. And now, behold before your unbelieving eyes the worst Elvis impression ever! I don't know what I was doing right there, but it certainly was not Elvis, and I apologize sincerely to everyone with eyeballs. And here's a montage I edited of shots I didn't think I would need for the actual reviews, because I edited this before I edited the actual reviews, and I second-guessed which bits of B-roll would and wouldn't be redundant, and I didn't always get it right. This live studio audience bit, I remember regretting that I didn't think of it in enough time to shoot it in Florida, because Florida has so many more attractions with stadium-style seating that really would have sold the joke better. But in hindsight, I could have just shot it at either Waterworld or Animal Actors at Universal Hollywood, because both of those shows have stadium-style seating, and I just didn't think of it because I'm stupid. I love that fake out there. That was a real Disney World ad that used to always play during the Blip ad breaks, and I just love taking the piss out of stuff like that. So this is a parody of how my good friend Morgan Funder, aka The Wire, used to do her show The Idiot's Lantern, and she was kind enough to let me shoot this at her place in Riverside with her webcam in the exact same location where she always used to shoot her show. It crossed my mind at first to do the entire retrospective as a co-review with Morgan because she's such a TV expert, but she couldn't afford the trip to Florida, so I figured this fake out here would be almost as good. I don't remember why her hair is wet in this shot. Maybe we had just gotten off Splash Mountain or Grizzly River Run or something. I honestly have no idea, but it's fascinating for you at home to hear me say that I have no idea, isn't it? There was a brief bit I cut after the TV vomits blood where she makes it to Interventions and says, "See, I told you it'd make your soul vomit blood," as a reference to the Small World episode, and then she turns around and sees the Intervention sign and says, "They'll never find me here." But it didn't quite work in editing, and I decided it was better to just cut from me screaming in front of the real Full House, by the way, straight to this title. We got that real Full House shot in San Francisco the same day we got this sweet Golden Gate Bridge shot. Even though I never put outtakes at the end of videos because I always like to save them for the outtake specials, in this case, I made an exception. I just had to include the raw footage of me on the bridge because it's just so damn cool. The Golden Gate Bridge shot was achieved with two cars, obviously, with Morgan driving my car and me in the passenger seat with my head out the window, and right next to us, Jack and Josh, with Jack driving and Josh sitting right behind him with the window open and pointing the camera out the window, and my God, I just love that we went to that much trouble to get such a stupid shot, and it's glorious and wonderful, and and the episode doesn't need it. I think the montage would have been just fine if we hadn't been able to get it, but it's just the perfect icing on that cake. So extending those credits to longer than they normally would have been was one of the ways I stretched this episode past the 10-minute mark to make room for that ad break on Blip. Another way I did so was after all the logos and everything, I added a blank void of emptiness before cutting to the final tag, which was, of all things, a clip from a deleted scene of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I think I vastly overestimated how many people were familiar enough with Kevin Smith's most self-indulgent movie, which is saying something, to have remembered a specific deleted scene on its DVD. I have extremely esoteric tastes, and if you watch my show, you all have to suffer for them.
See, man?
And there it is, and join me tomorrow for my commentary on Full House Goes to Disney World.